So after all these years, we're finally getting a new Marvel Legends first appearance Spider-Man, but how does it compare to the original Marvel Legends first appearance Spider-Man, and is this new one worth the price tag? Be sure you stick around until the end, soulmates, because we're going to talk about what characters we want to see next in their first appearance costumes. If you support what I do, please click subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a single video of mine when it comes out. The first time we saw a Marvel Legends style first appearance Spider-Man was in the Spider-Man Classics wave when it released Series 2. But it wasn't that long, just a few years later, in 2005, during the Sentinel wave, when we saw another first appearance Spider-Man. But was it 100% accurate? No. When you look at the design on his upper body, it tapers out a little too much. It's more of a straight drop on Steve Ditko's designs. And also, when you look at the action figure, you can see all kinds of things that were not in Amazing Fantasy 15. You can see folds on his costume, which give it that nice tactile feel, and then you look at the webbing and they're all etched onto his costume and then they're painted in, and it's a pretty good experience even if it's not 100% accurate to what we see in the comic book that was included with the action figure. Another thing I like about this toy is that the body isn't too muscular. That's something that I think a lot of artists lose the spirit of, is making Spider-Man just too muscular. Finally, I think that the best thing about Toy Biz's rendition of first appearance Spider-Man is that the head sculpt is a perfect one-to-one rendition of Steve Ditko's art. Compliments aside, there is a big problem with this action figure, and that is the web wings. The web wings have been a huge design problem whenever they want to depict Spider-Man with them. The solution that Toy Biz used was they took a piece of mesh fabric, tied some elastic strings around his elbows, his neck, and his waist, and they pretty much called it a day. But the most successful version I saw is when they thread the elastic through Spider-Man's hip joints instead of tying it around his waist. That way it looked a little neater when Spider-Man was spreading his arms and stuff, but of course when you turned the action figure around, it still didn't look all that great because you had this big piece of mesh just covering Spider-Man's back. And speaking of comic book accuracy, Spider-Man has a blue spider emblem on his back, but if we look at Toy Biz's version of first appearance Spider-Man, he has a red emblem. And so does Hasbro's version of first appearance Spider-Man. Hasbro's version of this character is quite different. It eliminates all the texture that we found on the Toy Biz version for the most part. Instead, the separations between the designs on Spider-Man's costume are painted on. We do see the modern improvements in articulation on this one, such as the ab crunch and the torso cut. Again, I think that combo is the best combo you can possibly get on a Marvel Legends action figure. And we also see butterfly joints on this one, which are different from the lat articulation that Toy Biz used to use a lot. What I think could make it even better is if they used a sort of omnidirectional style joint that allowed them to move their arm up a little bit more, as well as forward and back more. Spider-Man here comes with 3 sets of hands, 2 web lines, and 2 sets of web wings. And it's interesting to me how they've gone about trying to solve the problem of the web wings. On these, you just insert them into a peg hole on the underside of Spider-Man's arm, and there they are. Do they stay in place all that well? No, and I don't think they're all that pliable either. And to me, I think that the webbing on them should be painted black, because when you look at the comic book, Spider-Man's web wings are depicted with black strands. And honestly, the same thing goes for the web strands that are included with him. Those should be painted black too, because when you look at Amazing Fantasy 15, his webs are black in that comic book. I do like the accessories overall, and I think they form a pretty good package. We have all the necessary Spider-Man hands here, so that's great. This sculpt is definitely a little more my speed than the usual Spider-Man sculpt that they've been using recently, because I keep saying I think Spider-Man shouldn't be that muscular, but I still think he's a little too muscular in some areas here. For instance, I think that his arms are a little too jacked here. I think that his calves are a little too big. I think if they tone those things down just a little bit and smooth out the muscles, we'd have ourselves a close to perfect Spider-Man body. I do notice that the head on this Spider-Man action figure is not as accurate to the comic book as the Toy Biz version. The one that Hasbro's done is a little softer and rounder, and the web design is not as clustered together as it is on Steve Ditko's artwork. I also feel that the web design on the torso doesn't go high enough on the toy, and there's too much of a taper compared to the comic. It really needs to be brought to almost the top of his shoulder, and the strip going down the middle of his body needs to be drawn into about the middle of each pectoral muscle. Is this one worth your money? It depends what you're looking for in a first appearance action figure. If you're looking for something that is really accurate, this isn't quite there. The thing that could prevent me and a lot of other people from buying this one is the new Marvel Legends box art. Because now Marvel Legends do not have a plastic window, they have closed boxes. So now you cannot see inside the package and look at the merchandise before you buy it. To me, it just makes sense that if you make an action figure, you want people to see inside that window and be impressed, not see some gussied up photograph. Because let's think about this for a second. You see that photograph, you know very well it's been through Photoshop. You know it looks as good as it possibly can because people have worked on it. Whereas you look through the window of an action figure while it's on the shelf, you see it for what it is, and you can judge it for what it is, and you can also see any factory errors there might be. It's a terrible business move. I think it's going to alienate a lot of people, and I'm just going to say buyer beware on this one. Now that we've talked about this Spider-Man, I'd like to talk about the first appearance versions of characters that we'd like to see, and personally, I would love to see a new first appearance version of Daredevil in his yellow and black and red costume. You know, the real funny looking one that happened before he donned his red costume. And if Hasbro did a really great version of it, I would have a hard time saying no for sure. Well, Soulmates, what do you think of this amazing fantasy Spider-Man figure? Is this one that you have to have? Is this one that you like? Do you think that it's pretty good for the most part, or do you think that maybe they missed a few too many things and that you might skip this one? Also, who do you want to see next? What first appearance of a character do you want to see most? Let me know down in the comments, guys. I would love to know what you think about this. I'll be back again soon with some more thoughts about new comic book toy news. And until then, with love from me to you, bye-bye.